The number one student loan question that we have been getting over the last 6 months is for the 7 to 8 million borrowers that are in SAVE, what is going to happen? When are my payments going to resume? And what do I need to know? And the hard part is we don't know, but there are three main scenarios, and I want to spend a minute to break down the three scenarios because with the passage of the Republican budget bill, it's a lot more likely that scenario two here in my list could happen than it was just a week ago. So here are the three scenarios that you need to know if you're in SAVE. You're one of the 7 to 8 million borrowers. Number one is that the court voids the SAVE plan. And this is the number one expected scenario. We think the court's going to void it. It's highly likely that SAVE's going away. And what that would mean is if the court voids it now, and either Congress hasn't passed the new law yet, or Congress never passes the new law, well, the Department of Education is going to have to make rules. They're going to have to decide, what are we going to do with these 7 to 8 million people? What payment plan are we going to force them into? When are we going to force them into doing it? And what is the consequence if they don't decide, and how that looks? So in most likely scenarios, if the court voids SAVE and there is no other new repayment plans or Congress doesn't act, this is going to be like a 9 to 18 month long process because the court's going to rule, the Department of Education is going to have to understand what that means. They're going to send out communication. They're going to have to start a rulemaking process. They're going to have to tell borrowers that you are going to either have to choose a new repayment plan, or we're going to move you into like the standard 10-year plan. And then we're going to give you a grace period. And then maybe by like the middle of next year, like the first payments will be due for those borrowers. That is the longest timeline. It is also, the most like complex because it's going to require rulemaking. Number two, which is significantly increased in probability, is that Congress acts first, or Congress passes the repayment assistance plan, even if like the court voids SAVE. Like once this repayment assistance plan passes, the very first clause in it is that all borrowers in a administrative forbearance or an income contingent repayment plan, or one of these, has to move into amended IBR within 6 months. That's what's in there. However, the rule is a little vague that they have to start the process within 6 months. I think logistically, it might take a little longer before the first payments actually come about. But this one is really increasing in the odds. So let's just say they do pass the budget by June 30th. Well, 6 months is the end of the year. They'll likely start the process and start moving borrowers into this new thing by the end of the year. And then, of course, the first payments under the amended IBR plan would likely come in the beginning of 2026 or the middle of 2026. Finally, there is the very rare scenario that the court upholds SAVE entirely. Very rare, but if that happens, they could literally just turn payments back on. Now, granted, it would still take about 60 to 90 days, like you can't flip it on a dime. However, if RAP does pass, even if the court upholds SAVE and RAP passes, well, the RAP rules start applying, the 6-month period starts. So even if SAVE is upheld, if RAP passes, SAVE is still going to die because all of those other plans die except for the amended IBR plan. So these are the three biggest scenarios that we expect to happen. With that said, you'll notice that in basically all the scenarios, 2026 is when your first payments are going to be due. Whether that's going to be like January 2026, mid 2026, late 2026, all signs point to that. Could it happen earlier? Yes, of course. They could try to do some expedited things, but my guess is that they'll pass the law. There might be some lawsuits. There's going to be some logistical headaches. Like logistically, the odds of it going before 2026 are pretty rare if you're in the SAVE plan. If you're in one of the other plans like IBR, ICR, Pay, you could theoretically have the amended IBR coming into your life this fall or by Christmas time. But again, I doubt it. I think your first payments under amended IBR would still likely be in early 2026 regardless. So this is our estimates. This is not anything concrete, but based on what we know today, what's happening with the RAP plan, what's happening with the court cases, and just the sheer logistics of migrating 7 to 8 million people and dealing with loan servicers and processes and, bureaucracy, this is what we think. Early to mid 2026, probably more mid 2026 would be like if I was betting in Vegas, that's when we would expect SAVE plan borrowers to start having to resume payments, depending on which of these courses of action happen. So, with that being said, let me know in your comments. If you want the full breakdown, you want the full article, of course, you can find this on thecollegeinvestor.com. You can hit the link in bio, the description. We are here to bring you this information. These are our estimates, not anybody else's, not official, but based on what we know and what we think, this is when the SAVE plan borrowers should start expecting to make things happen.